This show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe and welcome to our circle.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Patricia W. Fisher with Readers Entertainment Radio on a very chilly Halloween. Well, it's chilly for us in San Antonio because it is close to freezing. I know everybody else is like, yeah, it's just another Thursday in October, but we are really cold here. And then also it is Juliette Gordon-Lowe's birthday, and if you don't know who that is, if you've ever bought a box of Girl Scout cookies, that's the lady you need to say thank you, Juliette Gordon-Lowe, because she is the founder of Girl Scouts, and her goal was to create an organization for all girls in Savannah, Georgia, which is where she grew up, all girls in the United States and all girls in the world. So thank you, Juliette Gordon-Lowe, for starting that amazing program and helping girls everywhere. So and today we have an amazing girl, or wonderful woman. Her name is Michelle Cox. She's the author of the multiple award-winning Henrietta and Inspector Howard series, as well as the novel Notes of Local Lore, a weekly blog dedicated to Chicago's forgotten residents. She suspects she may have once lived in the 1930s. Having yet to discover a handy time machine lying around, she has resorted to writing about the era in a way of letting herself get back there. Coincidentally, her books have been praised by Kirkus, Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, Book List, and many others, and hopefully all of you that are listening when you pick her books up. And unbeknownst to most, Michelle hoards board games that she doesn't have time to play. I understand this well. And not surprisingly addicted to period dramas, big band music, and of course Marmalade. And who isn't, because it's fabulous. So you can find her at her website and all her social media places that are all in the write-up of the show today. So welcome, Miss Michelle. How are you, my dear?
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm great.
Good. So you are outside of Chicago. What is your weather like today?
Well, shockingly, there is snow on the ground. Can you believe it?
Wow. In October.
Yes.
Wow.
October, and it is actually snowing as we speak. So who knows how much we'll have by the time it's trick-or-treating hours.
Wow. Yeah, San Antonio's a bit quirky because, everybody buys their costumes so stinking early now. And so we have these costumes, and then honestly, in here it's a crapshoot of, will it be hot? Will it be cold? Will it be cool? Will it be rainy? We don't know. It could be any season. So this year we lucked out and it's freezing. Last year it was a thunderstorm came in during Halloween.
Wow.
So it was like a rush to, beg for candy. And then years before it's been 90 degrees. We really don't know. So.
That's amazing. Yeah,
it's wild.
we don't think of Texas as having that much diversity in the weather. I just think of it as being hot all the time.
Well, it is hotter more than. Yeah, it is hotter more than we probably like it. But it snowed this week in Texas. It snowed up in Lubbock in the Panhandle early in the week. Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Weird.
Yeah.
Well,
so it'll be a very interesting winter.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering what does this mean? Are we in for it? But luckily, I just have to say this about Halloween. It's just my daughter, believe it or not, we were talking about getting costumes so early. She did the same thing. She's 13. And she picked out, you're not going to believe it, a Santa Claus costume. And how perfect. It's snowing. Yes. I'm like, wow, this is so meant to be. I just can't wait. It's like the most perfect
what I'm
costume
waiting
ever.
to see? I know, but I really want to one year, and maybe I'll just do it myself. I really want someone to come to my door dressed as the holiday armadillo. I really, really want that. have Santa Claus, the holiday armadillo, and Superman all just walk to my front door. I would love that so much.
You would dump all the candy in their bag.
I would so dump all the candy in there. And Superman would have to say, "How you doing?" And that would just be it. He would just get all the candy, or she would get all the candy. Whoever she is.
Yes. Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't understand that reference, there's an episode of Friends, which I totally adore that show. But there's an episode of Friends where Ross is trying to get his son to understand Hanukkah because they're Jewish, and he tries to get a holiday costume 2 days before Halloween, and the only thing he can get is an armadillo. So he dressed as he's the holiday armadillo. It's just crazy. It's a crazy, stupid scene. And I would love to have been the person writing that. Like, where did that come from?
Yes. What place in your mind came up with that?
But any good writer, it's like we all get that, because like I'm sure you have people say, why the 1930s? Why are you drawn to that? And it just speaks to you, correct?
It does. I mean, the real story is that I've always been, attracted to the past and stories of the past. But my big area that I used to really be attracted to was the 40s. And when I started writing the first book of the series, A Girl Like You, I didn't realize it was a series. I thought it was just going to be a one-off. And I based it on a woman that I had met at a nursing home. So a lot of book one, it actually really happened in real life. So Henrietta, the character, is based on this woman. So when I was interviewing this woman, she had all of these crazy jobs in Chicago in the 30s. I mean, it was just like all the jobs in the book are real jobs that this woman actually had. And I loved the fact that she was, she worked as a, quote, Dutch girl at the World's Fair in Chicago in 1933. And I'm like, I have to put that in the book. I have to. So I shifted to the 30s to incorporate that, which now I realize is a dumb thing. But at the time, like I said, I didn't realize that this was going to turn into a series. I'm like, well, I can do it for one book. But, now, of course, I'm, totally there. So, yeah, it's weird.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so where were you working that you talked to this woman initially?
Yeah, well, in the 90s, early 90s, I was working it's a nursing home on the northwest side of Chicago, still in the city limits, and it was called the Bohemian Home for Orphans and the Aged. So back in the day, it used to also be an orphanage, and as well as a place for the elderly. So that is where I met her. I was working there, and I think that was pretty common back in the day for different ethnic groups and different charities to set up their own, like orphanages or shelters or schools or hospitals. And a lot of times parents who a lot of the orphans in these orphanages weren't really orphans. It's just that their parents couldn't financially take care of them anymore. Maybe one of them died. And so, the husband wouldn't just stick them all in the orphanage. And if he got them out someday, great. But if they, some other family came along and wanted to adopt them, great too. So that was kind of the background for this place where I worked. Of course, when I was there's no more orphans, but plenty of elderly.
Sure. Were any of the people who were there as elderly, were they there as orphans?
No, but there were people who could remember, because it's next to this giant Bohemian National Cemetery, and that whole area was all Czech. And by the time I worked there, it was turning. There was a lot of Korean people moving in, and also a lot of, I don't think Puerto Rican, but some other Latin American group. But there were still a lot of old Czech and Polish people living in that area, and they would tell me that they could remember coming to the Bohemian Home as children, because every year the Bohemian Home would put on this giant picnic, and they would invite the community. And so they remembered going there as children and playing on the grounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, there's so much history there.
Well, and I'm looking at your blog, and you've got this wonderful blog, like I mentioned, Novel Notes of Local Lore. And you feature somebody new every week that tells you their story. Yeah,
that's all from the nursing home. So
wow.
All those stories, were stories that I gathered. So they really are true stories. I did change the names just to protect the innocent, but otherwise, those are all, really, really true. And I mean, not everyone, but so many of them could be novels in their own right, or at least, the jumping off point for a novel.
Sure.
So,
are these pictures that you're using, are the pictures that you're using for the articles, are those from the people themselves, or are they stock photos?
They're pretty much stock photos. They're really not stock photos. Yeah, they're just photos that I'm using. Some of them are real, but those are pretty hard to come by.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Because I wasn't sure, how willing people were willing to share.
Yeah, they were willing to share their story. I mean, because they're just sitting there. I mean, that was the great thing. And I've told this story before, that I was actually hired to be the admissions director, and I was really, really terrible at it, because my job, I didn't realize at the time, was to sell beds or to, schmooze hospital discharge staff, chase ambulances, that kind of thing. And that really wasn't my thing. I was never in my office, never on the phone. I was always out on the floor talking to people, because it was so fascinating. And, helping them with their roommate, or they lost their sweater or whatever. So finally the administrator called me in, and he said, this isn't working. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to be fired. And he said, no, you know what, we're going to move you into social service. I mean, keep in mind, I had an English degree. So I'm like, well, I don't have a social work degree. And he's like, it doesn't matter. So then it became my job, is to sit with people and to get their story. And I was supposed to only write just like a tiny paragraph to put in the chart, so the staff would have some sort of reference as to who this person was. But I would write pages and pages and pages and pages, and no one ever told me not to. I mean, didn't have a whole lot of oversight. But the staff would come up to me and they would say, "Oh, we read the latest one. It was great." I know, isn't it so sad? Blah blah. So yeah, they had a great reception even then. And so then when I was kind of, starting to write, and I had a publicity company help me, and they said, you need a blog. I'm like, God, I don't want to write a blog, and I don't know what to write about, and the world does not need yet another blog on writing. So finally I came up with this idea, and they're like, yeah, we love it. And so I started it, and oddly it has its own little following, separate from the book. I mean, there's obviously some crossover, but it has its own little, fan group that waits every week for the new story to come out. So it's pretty cool.
I mean, you've gone all the way back to 2015. I mean, you've got a tremendous amount. So if anybody's just starting, they've got plenty of material to read. But, I mean, like you're saying, I can't imagine, everybody thinks their life's like, okay, yeah, so I did a few things. It's not a big deal. But to someone else listening to it, it's got to be really fascinating. And I would think that a lot of times people are like, oh, wow, I haven't even thought of that in a long time. Or it just kind of seeing them kind of light up and say, oh, yeah, that's right. I did do those things. And the process,
Right. And I was fascinated by these stories, and it was great for the people coming in, because I would sit with a new resident for like a week, maybe 2 weeks, to just, draw the stories out of them. And that was great for them, because they felt like somebody really cared, and somebody wanted to hear the stories that they've told their family already a million times, and who, doesn't want to hear it again. Yeah. So it was good. It was good for me. And I really believe that it was good for them. I think it was really good for the staff to see this person in a more full light, instead of just, a paragraph. They used to live at blah, and they used to do blah.
Right.
So,
well, and I'm sure, though, too, there's probably stories that they're like, man, I've never told anybody that. Or even their family's going, well, they never told me they played basketball, or,
Right.
That was my mother-in-law is a very petite woman, and she's in her 80s, and she was talking about something, I can't remember what it was, and she said, well, yeah, when I played basketball. And I said, what do you mean you played basketball? It's like I've known you for 20 plus years. I said, you played basketball? And she's like, well, yeah, we played basketball. And she was on the team and everything. And I'm like, what? And so I asked my husband, I said, did you know this? And he's like, no, I didn't know this. And I'm just like, really? I mean, it seems like something that it would be conversation. But people just think, oh, yeah, well, it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
So what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so I can't imagine how absolutely full of nuggets of information that you take from those stories and go, okay, I'm going to put that in this story and I'm going to tuck that over there, and I didn't know this happened. I mean, how do you sort it initially, and then how do you sort it later? Like, or is it all at one time that you put it in these little pockets of knowledge?
That's a good question. Because like I said, I feel like I have this sort of gravitation towards stories of the past. So, I was the kid at, family gatherings that was always kind of sitting and listening to the older people talk about how they used to can blah, 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 or what happened the time a hobo wandered by the farm, or whatever it was. And so I've sort of been collecting these stories in my mind since I was a little kid, and I've read, almost the whole canon of classic literature. I've watched almost every period drama ever made. So I got this amazing job listening to stories. It's like, how perfect was that? So yeah, at the time when I was writing the stories, it's just basically, listen, record. But yeah, I definitely pull from those stories and pull from my own, family stories and stick them into novels. And it's really not planned. It just occurs to me as I'm writing, like, oh, this would be a great place to put the part where, blah, blah, blah happens. So I think it's something that just sort of kind of rounds out the stories, or I guess we should differentiate and say novels, because I do use a lot of those details in novels. And so people often say to me, wow, you must have done so much research for these books. And have done some, but some of it is just there anyway. If that makes sense.
Right. Well, and hearing it from the person who experienced it, you can read it out of a book, but I mean, there's something about hearing someone's personal narrative instead of just reading it is, I think, just really stirs a lot more creativity for writers. Does the same thing happen with you? Yeah.
Yeah, because you can, as they're speaking, you can imagine it. It's like it starts to play in your mind, almost like a movie, and you're writing it down, but it's also playing, recording kind of in your mind. So yeah, for sure.
Have the families? Do you let the families know that you're interviewing their loved ones, and then do they get a copy of the story as well?
No, I mean, this would, happening when their loved one was being admitted. So this is like 90, 91, 92, 93.
Sure.
So all of these people, I'm sure, are gone by now. But
okay.
So sometimes, though, people would come in, and you can tell their memory is, they have dementia or something, where it's not a reliable memory. And so a lot of times I would try to interview the families as well,
to
sort of, verify what this person is saying, or even to just add a different dimension to it. And some of them were very, 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 very willing. It was kind of probably a therapy for them. Like, somebody wants to hear the story of their struggle with their parent, and they were glad to share, and glad that somebody was interested. But other family members were very closed and really didn't want to talk to me, and that was fine too. So, it's. But did they ever get to read the story? No. I mean, I didn't even think about it at the time. I would have shared it with them, but it didn't occur to me.
Yeah.
Because it seemed more like
it's in their file.
Part of the job. Right.
Right. So, but I mean, if they wanted the file, they could get it as well.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So you have 4 books in the series, correct? A Girl Like You, A Ring of Truth, A Promise Given, and A Veil Removed are the 4
Yes.
you have out right now. Okay. And so do you have more in the series coming?
Yeah.
Because you've got, it's
book
like
5.
A Veil Removed is the most recent?
Yes, that came out just in April.
Okay.
So it's not quite a year old yet.
Okay.
So yeah, that one came out, book 4 in April, and then book 5, A Child Lost, comes out next April. So April 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you write about a book a year? Is that the pace, or is that, I mean, with the juggle of everything else that goes on in your world? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is the my pace right now. Although in 2018 I challenged myself to write 2 books. So I wrote book 5 of the series, and then I also wrote a standalone, again based on one of these stories.
Yes.
Which I was able to, blow up even bigger. And that one I am currently kind of shopping around to see where that goes. I'm kind of hoping to get a different publisher.
Sure.
So I'm working on it. So yeah, in 2018 I wrote 2 books, and that almost killed me. And then I said, okay, I'm going to stop for a while, but then I couldn't, and I started another whole one again based on a story. So
sure,
I'm working on that one right now.
Well, so NaNoWriMo's coming up, tomorrow. And for people who don't know what NaNoWriMo is, it's a write a novel in a month book contest, and it's really kind of you're challenging yourself to write your crappy first draft. And anybody listening who thinks they're going to sit down and just write from beginning to end, or the perfect book and won't be edited, you won't. But that's fine, because I think the big thing that the Nano event is supposed to do is just to get you to finish the project and then go back and fix it. And a lot of people I've talked to is like, well, I started with NaNoWriMo. I thought I could write a book. What was your catalyst to sit down and say, you know what, I think I'm going to write a book?
That's a good question. I think I always wanted to write a book, but I never really thought I was a good enough writer, because I'm reading until probably age 40, only classic literature. So it didn't occur to me to write a novel, because I knew I could never write, Pride and Prejudice. I knew I could never write Great Expectations, so why bother?
Sure.
But then after my 3rd kid was born, my brain kind of turned to mush. And so I get this so much. Right? So I started reading a lot of contemporary historical fiction, which was kind of like reading the classics, but easier. So
yeah.
Not to diss anybody. I mean, I'm writing historical fiction too, so it's huge.
Oh yeah, I know. The language itself is different. So yeah,
right. Sentence structure, all of that. So I didn't ever think that I could, produce something like that. But then, like I said, I started reading more contemporary fiction. I'm like, maybe I could do that. And then really it didn't come to a head until my oldest was diagnosed with ADHD as a sophomore in high school. I know it's a long story of how that all happened. But anyway, I, kind of freaked out, because I was doing all this volunteer work. I was, on all these committees and, blah, blah, blah. And I just had this moment where I'm like, what the heck are you doing? You're out helping people, all week, and, your kids need you. And I felt like the second one might have some learning issues as well after I started researching all of this. And so I just, cold turkey quit everything, which is really hard for me. So I just said, that's it. I quit everything, and I'm just going to focus on these kids. Well, that's great, but that, it didn't really take that long to get them, a therapist and a medication and, a tutor and all this kind of stuff. And there's not a whole lot I can do. So then I had this huge glut of time. And
right.
I thought, you know what, I can either go back to all this volunteering, I could, join new volunteer groups, which sounded kind of intriguing, or I could get a job, or I could write a novel. So I decided that I really felt like I was getting lots of signs along the way as well, like, you should be doing this. Like, I think 4 different people in 4 different aspects, walks of my life, came up to me randomly and said, you should write a book. I'm like, okay. So after the 4th one, I'm like, okay, maybe I should be listening to this. So I thought, all right, I'm going to try it. So that was the thing. It was not to get published. It was not to make money, be famous, any of that. It was just to actually see if I could sit in a chair long enough to write a book. And that's what happened.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And your first book your first book, was it, so all of us have a book, they're like, it's never going to see the light of day. Some have more than one. Was this book published, or is it the book that's like,
no,
that was my starter book?
Yeah, it's a starter book for sure. I mean, I passed it out to family and friends, and they're like, oh, my God, it's amazing. What are you going to do with it? And I thought, I don't know. Isn't this good enough? I wrote a book. And they're like, no, you should publish it. No, and I had no idea what that involved. If I had known, I would never have done it. But, it just, I tried to shop it for like a year, and it just went nowhere. And I thought, you know what, I need to start over. So that one got put in the drawer, as they say, and I started over with a girl like you. And it is interesting, though, because the people who have read it occasionally will say to me, hey, when are you going to ever do anything with that first book? We really liked it. I'm like, well, that's kind. But I've already stolen so many characters from that book that, it would just have to be completely redone.
Right.
Maybe someday, but
it's but it's important. I mean, it's interesting because I don't know if you ever watched Modern Family, but there's an episode where Jay keeps saying, well, I could write a book, and Gloria says, fine, sit down and write it. And he's sitting there, and I think he gets like to 4 sentences, and they're all crap, and he can't finish anything. And he's got some stupid typewriter he's using, and then of course Manny comes in, and his stepson, and they start talking. But it was the challenge of, can you write it? Oh yeah, I can write it. It's not hard. And then he's just staring at the computer or the typewriter. And I think we've all done this, especially when we're starting. Even in each book is like that. I think that we all sit there, and some of us have it like the book. We know what we're writing, and every once in a while you're blessed with that moment of, I got it, I got it. It's gonna just all vomit on the page, and it does. Other times it's just like trying to, pull a brick uphill.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a process for sure. But finishing that first book, I think, is, I'm sure you thought, okay, I did it. I can do this.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
It's the struggle.
Finish the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It becomes
so I'm kind of laughing too
easier.
because there was a book years ago that I remember finding at, I think it was Barnes & Noble. It was called Clara's Kitchen. And it was about this little woman who's from, I should say little woman, a woman in her 90s that her grandson, and she sat down and she told all these stories about these dishes that she'd make. And she's from Chicago. And she's 94 at the time. I'm sure she may have passed by now. I don't know. She's kind of feisty, maybe not. But she would talk about, and I got to talk to her because I covered her book, but I got to talk to her about these different stories, and it's kind of like what you're saying. People are going, what? I had no idea. And one of the things she talked about was, they didn't have freezers in the 30s.
Yeah, right.
And so they would get their extra food, like if they wouldn't eat the roast, they wouldn't finish it. So they would wrap it in, I guess, butcher paper or something, and it would be so cold and it would be snow. Her mom would say, take this and put it by the 3rd fence post in the snow. Oh. And then, a week later, she'd go, okay, go out to the 3rd fence post to get the roast. It would be in the snow. the whole time.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah. And so it was these kind of stories, like, yeah, like what you're saying is that's what, okay, what do we have around us that we can use to survive?
Yeah.
And I'm sure when you were talking and collecting all these stories, and then some of them have made them into your books, people are going, what? People did what?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's so many
have you had
those stories. Like, there was, I heard this story from a couple of different residents, so I feel like it's true. And remember, all of these people. Well, that's the thing. They have to connect to Chicago somehow. So, at some point,
right.
they were living in Chicago. So, they would tell me that even living in apartments, no one ever locked their apartment door. And on summer nights when it was really hot because they had no air conditioning, they would all actually just go out onto the beaches on Lake Michigan and just lay there. They would sleep on the beach. And I'm like, weren't you afraid that, someone was going to attack you or murder you or whatever? And they're like, no, it wasn't like that. We all looked out for each other and blah, blah, blah. So I found that incredibly fascinating.
Do you think so it was more of a camaraderie, like we're all just trying to survive here?
Pretty much, yeah. And they would go, there's a scene in A Girl Like You where Henrietta has to go down to the armory and where they would give out free food during the Depression. And she said it was a very, it was very much a camaraderie, and people would trade things. So, you might get a free, bag of sugar or whatever, and somebody else would get a block of cheese. And, they would trade, and it was a real sense of trying to help each other survive, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is the let me see here. What is the strangest story anybody told you and that you used in your story and you used in your book?
Oh. Well, the strangest story that I used in the book was probably, there's a lot of strange stories, but I haven't used them all yet. But the one that I did use is so in book 1, Henrietta is persuaded to try out to be an usherette at a burlesque club. So this happened in real life. So this woman really did go try to be an usherette. And just to be the usherette, you had to interview and you had to audition. So you're just going to be the girl going around selling cigarettes and, peanuts, but they had to audition. So she said when she got to the audition, the line was all the way around the block. That's how desperate these women were to just have this job. So when it was finally your turn, she had to get up on stage and she had to kind of be like in a chorus line. And she was shocked because she had to show off her legs. She had to turn around and lift her skirt, show her butt. And then whoever was running the audition would just go down the line and say left, right, left, right, left, right. And if you were on the left, you would have to go to the left, and there was a little door, and it led right out into the alley, and that was it. You're done. If you were picked for right, you went into this little room, and you had to stand in there like cattle and wait, and then all the ones that were left would have to come back out and do the whole thing again. So that whole scene, I wrote that whole scene into the book, and when Henrietta gets there, I'm not going to give too much away, but when she gets there, there were very strict rules about, who could touch who could not. They had to go to the bathroom in pairs because they were afraid that they would be attacked by the customers. And when Henrietta gets there, so she's all afraid of these guys. In real life, she's a very innocent, very virtuous woman, even though she was really a bombshell. She was really a knockout. And I talk about that in the book. And so she was all, really worried about these guys, but really most of the women who worked there were all lesbians, and she didn't know that. And so they kind of, came on to, this is all real. They kind of came on to her, and she said, oh my gosh, no, I'm not like that. And as soon as she said that, they became her protectors. And so they would, because I think they felt like she was this very innocent person in this very bad place. So they became her friends and protectors, and they would invite her to their parties after the show. And, here's me in the nursing home, like furiously writing this down. Like, really? Then what happened? So, and she would talk about how actually, what actually happened at those parties, and very interesting stuff. This is not what you're thinking, when you're asking grandma at Christmas, what she did in the 30s.
Yeah. Hey, so, Grandma, tell us about the time you auditioned for the burlesque show. What? Nobody's going to ask her.
You were befriended by a gang of lesbians who, helped you out. It's not what you're thinking.
Wow. So, I can't even imagine. Yeah, you're right. I would be writing like crazy. Actually, I might even be so shocked that I'd be just sitting there listening. Not that it would be unheard of, but it's like to actually hear someone who was there.
Right, exactly.
Would just be
that first-hand person. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, that just going back to your question for a second about the families hearing the stories, when I first started writing this blog, I actually kept the names the same. And I had a guy contact me from somewhere in Canada through my website, and he said, I loved your latest story. That's my Aunt Clara. I'm like, what? He's like, how is she doing?
My gosh.
I'm like, well, she's dead. And so he was very surprised and proud of the fact that I had written about his aunt. And he was actually able to give me a few extra details, which was great. So a few times that happened, but then I decided to change the names just to be on the safe side, because I wasn't sure if a family would really like that or not.
Well, sure. It's like, what do you mean? No way. And it's very interesting things that come out during different periods of life. Carrie Fisher was just like this brilliant storyteller, and she talks about all these stories her mom would just like randomly tell them. And so I was reading, it was in Wishful Drinking, and it was kind of that same thing. Like Debbie Reynolds was like, oh, did I tell you about the time this happened? And she'd be like, no. And Debbie would tell this like crazy story, and she'd like, wait, oh, okay, and just walk out of the room, and Carrie'd be like, what? Wait, what? There's got to be more. It's those wonderful nuggets that people just don't think is a big deal.
Right.
But, of course, to us, it's all new. So, and speaking of new, you've got this book coming out in April. So tell us what's coming with your fifth book.
Well, the fifth book is, a continuation, of course. This series is a little different. It's not the type of series where you can just read it out of order. I mean, a lot of people started with 4 for some reason, and they thought it read fine. They were able to pick up in the middle of the story, but it's really more a progressive series because each book has a little mystery in it that's resolved, but it's really more about all these characters and how their whole storyline is progressing along. So by the time we get to 5, and I try to end each book on a little cliffhanger so that
Sure.
You're intrigued to read the next one. So book 5 picks up right where 4 ends. And by this point, Henrietta's younger sister, who was never really meant to have a big role in the series, but she somehow does. So by books 4 and 5, she's having the same amount of airtime as Henrietta does. And I'm getting a lot of feedback from fans saying, we love the Elsie story. So that's kind of fun, too, and I would love to spin her off at some point into her own series. But she has discovered she's befriended this custodian at a women's college, and she has discovered that he has this little girl in his care. And so she has to try to get to the bottom of it. She's an epileptic, which in the 30s, there was actually a colony downstate Illinois where these epileptics were sent to live with other mentally handicapped people, deformed people. They had to go live in a colony. So it's kind of Elsie's and this custodian's sort of quest to find this girl's mother and to try to, save her from that. It leads them to an insane asylum in Chicago, a very famous insane asylum, very dark place. So a lot of the story takes place there. And then meanwhile, Clive and Henrietta, Elsie's trying to convince them to help them. So that part of their time is helping them, and they get involved in an insane asylum as well, and blah, blah, blah. But there's also this spiritualist that they're supposed to be investigating. And, Clive, of course, who's the inspector, thinks this is a huge hoax. And, he assumes Henrietta thinks so too, but shockingly, she starts to kind of believe what this person is saying. And so that's a whole other story that is progressing along. So a lot going on in this book.
Wow. And were you able to go visit the actual building where this institution was in Chicago?
No, it's been demolished. No, it's gone.
Okay.
Okay. They found there was a story in the Trib, which I dug up. No pun intended. Where they have uncovered, I think, the bodies of 38,000 people from the surrounding area. Yeah, I mean, there were some. It was surrounded by legit cemeteries, but some of them were just mass graves. So, yeah, that's all gone. It's I think like a park now.
Wow. Yeah, it's just interesting, the history. And, I know, you go to Europe and stuff's been there for centuries. And I know we talk about history in the United States, but it's definitely different, but it's still history, and there's still stories to be told. And so I'm so excited that you reached out to me, and, Michelle was so nice to say, hey, I listened to your show, which was lovely to know. And then she also said, can I be on it? I'm like, absolutely. So I'm so glad we were able to find, and it's perfect because it's Halloween, so you're talking about all sorts of fun stuff and going undercover and wearing costumes and, all sorts of cool stuff in your stories. So I love it.
Great. Yeah, this has been great.
And you've got events coming up. So you have something coming up this weekend. You will be doing, an author event here, local author day at the library?
Yes, I'm going to be in Naperville, and it's their second annual author day. And they're actually, I think there's going to be like 26 authors and some, kind of big names. So Renee Rosen, Mary Kubica, Melanie Johnson, they are going to be there, and myself as well. So that'll be fun.
Lovely.
Mingling with readers.
And then you also have an event coming up in January here in Texas.
Yes. I went last year for the first time. I don't know if you know Kathy Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen. She's amazing. She's great. She has this sort of girlfriend weekend, she calls it, in Jefferson, Texas. She has started, I think, 750 book clubs across the country and even in other countries. So she is a real force for literacy and for authors and readers and trying to connect those two. So it is unlike any conference you have ever gone to. This is just one big old party.
I love it.
She's great.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I am looking forward to seeing all your successes, and please come back and talk to us when Book 5 is out.
I would love to. Thank you.
Yay.
Thanks for having me, Patricia. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So stay warm. And all of you, that was Michelle Cox. She is at michellecoxauthor.com, and all her social media links are in the write-up of the show. So go check out her books. You've got 4 to catch up on before Book 5 comes out in April. Thank you so much, and keep reading,
This
everybody.
show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe, and welcome to our circle.
From the excitement of nominations to the applause after the opening of an envelope at the big award shows, The Hollywood Reporter is your source for the inside scoop on the moments leading up to and celebrating the wins of your favorite films, actors, and all the people that made them. Follow the race at HollywoodReporter.com for predictions, reviews, and voters. Check out the THR Awards Hub for everything you need for award season coverage. Visit THR.com today and subscribe to our newsletters so you don't miss a beat.
How to have fun, anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.